Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Programmers in 1.10.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And we are back here with Lunar Station. I've just launched one more test mission of an RD-57, got a bunch more points out of that test flight. But before I time warp up to the time when we're getting ready to send our lander down from Lunar Station, I realized that I should take a look at our lander situation. So it's currently about 30 kilometers away, and it's going to keep drifting further away. And someone in my comments on YouTube was incredibly helpful in telling me that the obvious answer is to match the orbital period. Same way that you would for a geostationary satellite, and for the exact same reason, to keep them from drifting. So, all of that bemoaning the fact that I did not have a perfect, easy way to measure the what do you call it? The parameters by which they are drifting apart. Of course I did. It was right here the whole time. So, I've written down what the actual number is from the lander, and it's 2 hours, 7 minutes, 10 seconds, and 28 milliseconds. So 10.28 seconds. So we have one full second of orbital period, and that means we are going to drift 1 second further away on every orbit. So let's see if we can't fix that just a touch. And there we go. Maybe? Off. We are pointed towards the sun. That's the problem. Fortunately, we are now in darkness, so... Oh, it keeps my solar panel average exposure. Nice. Okay, so let's see. We just need to... down just a little bit. There. 2, 7, 10.28. It is. We now have the exact same orbital period as the Apollo moon base lander, so it's going to keep drifting. Like, we are not in the exact same orbit because we are slightly off in other directions, but we should maintain our relative position to each other. At least we're going to do that better than we were a couple minutes ago. So that is what we're going to do as we wait this one out. So we have about 9 days and 10 hours or so until the alignment window pops up for the lander. So let's wait until then. All right, we are back, and we are actually just above the Apollo moon base. It is just below us somewhere. But the more important thing is after having fixed our orbital period to be exactly the same as the moon lander, it's still exactly 30 kilometers away. So that was indeed the answer, and I'm not sure why I didn't reach out and laterally connect those two things, because that was always the right answer, but it's just not something that I really considered. So now I have a little bit of an awkward thing to do where I want to load 2 of my astronauts onto the Apollo 8 moon base crew lander and then bring this back to be exactly the way that it is right now. So I need to just kind of go retrieve it, and then I'll be right back, I guess. Alright, so the crew is pushing away in their Apollo capsule. I am actually going to just... target, there we go. I'm actually going to just send this whole crew over there, actually. And then I'm going to drop off the 2 that I'm bringing down to the surface, and then the 1 crew that is going to stay on board is going to come on back. That should be relatively simple. All right, so we are 30 kilometers away, which is just a little bit too far away to do anything really fancy. So I'm just using a maneuver here to get us, we have to do the fancy thing. We have to change our orbit a little bit to actually intercept, because we are just a little bit too far away to do this easily by pointing in the direction of the lander and firing up the engines. So yeah, that's what we are going to do. Making sure we are ullaged up. Actually just did half of our burn. There we go. Alright, so in one full orbit, we will approach this really, really closely, and I think that should be just fine, because that's just going to be another 2 hours, 2 hours between the two. We don't have any lithium hydroxide on board. We mentioned that is all on the lander at the moment. We also don't have any power because I haven't fussed with the fuel cells. Or rather, I haven't actually turned them back on because they were off for a while. There we go. Nobody's going to die on this trip. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. And we'll just fly around, and then you see our relative velocity is shrinking as we get closer and closer, and I'm just going to have to do this in reverse to get back to Lunet Station, and that's fine. The pilot will be able to handle that with no problem whatsoever. I think I'm going to leave Inessa Bogolyubova on board, or actually Inessa is only level 1. So Inessa gets to go down to the surface, and Christine Adams is going to head into Lunet Station. All right, and there it is, just about 200 meters away. Very, very close now, and all that I need to do is, well, actually, I can just go straight into our docking maneuver now that I think about it. Let's parallel minus, because our relative velocity is so incredibly low that it's just not that big of a deal. And yeah, that's why this has been an okay thing to do, because it's been like it was always really close and always really relatively easy to make this maneuver, because it was 30 kilometers away. Like, it drifted in its orbit a little bit. If I had thought about it, I would have been able to do the exact same thing that I did, which was to match the orbital period. Like, I could have done that with them near each other and then would have maintained their distance, even though they were not going to be able to be like right next to each other, but that would have been pretty good. And so that's something that I've just learned for next time. If I need to keep things in orbit, remember the orbital period. It is the obvious thing, or not the obvious thing, but it is the thing that that you do that is similar to other missions, like our geostationaries. So we are just coming up now, and let's just use time warp to accelerate through this slow part. And that is when I realized that I had been moving a little bit too quickly. We're maintaining our exact distance, and I'm just trying to slow down in the lateral velocity because I got myself going a little too fast. All right, so we are on our final approach, heading into dock, and then it is going to be Edward Walters and Inessa Bogolyubova that are headed down to the surface to rendezvous with the moon base that we have left on the surface, and we are going to see how that works. And as I'm finishing up this this docking maneuver, I can talk a little bit about, I've had a someone on the Kerbal Space Program forums really came through. Yeah, Jimmy Maguchi on the Kerbal Space Program forums really came through for me and developed a and shared the reusable lunar lander that they use, using just stock RSS parts, nothing too fancy, nothing too special, and I was able to recreate it in my own particular idiom. And it was it seems to work. So I'm going to plan to launch one of those and start planning a reusable. The reusable thing is going to be basically the lander itself is going to be reusable, but I'm still going to have to send a tank of like 15 tons of fuel every time that I want to make it happen. So kind of a pain, but cheaper than sending out reusable LEMs that are 2-stage and have to leave stuff on the surface. I'd rather send out cheap Titan 3 launched packs of fuel and food and stuff out to Lunet Station rather than having to drop a LEM on the surface every single time. So anyways, here we are. We are all docked up and ready to go. So let's just make sure that everything that needs to be running is running, because we need to turn on everything that is on the LEM itself. We got a Loxagox converter inside this little box here. Loxagox in the box. We've got an N2 pressure controller in the same spot. And so that's going to deal with those two things. And then we've got a lithium hydroxide scrubber in the ascent stage. And so that all should be good. and should keep the crew nice and comfy on the way down to the station. Obviously, the ascent is going to be a whole different beast, but that should be all right. And now let's just move folks over. We'll just go to crew, go to vessels. We go from this to the ascent stage, and it's going to be Edward Walters and Inessa Bogolyubova are transferring down into the lunar ascent module. And then Christine Adams has had her shot, so she's going to stay in Lunat Station and do science. Well, I just say she's going to do science because she's a scientist. There's no actual science to be done. But I will deal with that in just a little bit as I make plans for the rejoining of her with Lunat Station, because that is where she's going to hang out. So that's that. And so it is time to undock. And then this crew is getting ready to head back to Lunat Station. All right, should be a relatively easy thing. But if I just, goodness gracious, node, create, node, fire up that engine, and we are off. In just 45 minutes, we will be nice and close and able to make that docking once again. In the meantime, yep, we actually have plenty of time. So I am going to, let's see, put this up. Target distance, 45 minutes. Okay, so we'll put that on there, and then I need to also plan for when we are going to be descending down to the moon base. So that's going to be something like... yeah, step one is to put our paraloon directly above where we are going. There we go. So that we can have an easier time approaching and not fighting gravity quite as much. We do have enough ignitions for that. It'll just be one to get into this position and then one more to get into, what do you call it? One more to get into our descent all the way down to the surface. So that is 40 minutes from now, and then so we will do that, and then we will switch over to the moon base, get that, or the Lunat Station folks, and then get that linked up, and then we can fulfill this landing completely. All right, as we're making our preparations, I'm just checking all of our numbers, and everything looks to be pretty good so far. 5 days of electric charge, 4 days of food, 5 days of water. All that sort of thing. So that should all be good. Plan for power. All right, so we have the engine fired up. We are burning down towards the surface. My power situation is I have an RTG, a single RTG on here that is going to give us more than enough power to maintain the systems while nobody is inside. It also increases the battery life while we do have people inside, but that is the plan for how this thing is actually going to survive its time on the lunar surface. Fingers crossed that I've done all of that math correctly. Meanwhile, in this very busy mission, let's switch back to what's happening over here. All right, 3 minutes away from our close approach with Lunat Station. All right, we are seconds away, and I'm just preparing to make this burn when we are as close as possible, so that because this is got plenty of thrust, so we're going to be able to just like blast into this intercept real quick. So it's just that we're going in mostly the right direction right now. Just a couple more seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, close enough. Let's do it. And done. There we go. So now we are nice and close and we can dock. All right, so a nice close docking. Look at this. We're just like kind of sliding right along. I'm pretty sure moving laterally at this distance is not part of NASA's plans for how to make a proper docking, but it's fine. We're fine. I had a weird issue with the targeting not working properly, and so it was not oriented in the right direction. This capsule was just not... the game seemed to have no idea where it was relative to like what was pointing forward. But I flipped some things around, and we managed to get that all fixed, so we are fine now and coming in for our final docking approach. And then we can drop Christine Adams into the habitation module, where she will be staying for about a month or so, because that will get us to the point where we are ready to get everybody back home. So we move her into the main habitation module. Okay. We are going to need to rotate around a little bit so that we have better sun exposure. I don't know that we're going to be able to find better exposure since we're on the nighttime side. Like, I don't know if I mean, the numbers are moving slowly, so it makes it seem like I am going to be able to point in the correct direction. Like, it knows where the sun is, even though it's not. Maybe not. I have no idea. Oop, there we go. Getting that number up. All right, 85-ish% is good enough for me. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just cancel, kill everything. All right, perfect. Make sure that we are nice and steady, and that is good. 91.8%. Lovely. So now we need to just turn everything off. So you see we shut down these avionics, and that is going to save us a whole bunch of power. We got none right now because obviously nothing is working. But we can turn off all of the systems that are in the Apollo module, the LOX-to-GOX converter. The fuel cells are the big ones. And then all we're going to use is the stuff that is on board the actual... Oh, that's right. There's no... Oh, there's a lithium hydroxide scrubber. That's fine. Okay, so we got lithium hydroxide scrubber, and we've got nitrogen pressure controllers, and so that is fine. So we should be okay. This power situation looks pretty grim, but it's going to settle out as soon as the pressure is where it needs to be, and all of that. Let's see. Not alone. That's a problem, but... should be okay. CO2 is okay. Everything else is years. N2 pressure controller only has 1 hour, so let's actually flip from that to the I only have nitrogen pressure control. Interesting. All right, well, fingers crossed that we have enough nitrogen to actually keep her happy on here for a while. By the time that the pressure gets to where it needs to be, because if it runs out, then that's going to be another stressor where she is just going to get pretty annoyed with this situation. But there's really not much we can do about it until the supply capsule arrives, which I don't think has any nitrogen on board, but maybe I can fix that before we get any further. But anyways, that is Christine Adams, and she should be safe. If not, then we'll see. We have all of the warnings that will come on here. So we'll see what happens. All right, so I've set up a node that should, in theory, bring us down directly onto our target, according to these landing predictions, within 286 meters, which would be awesome if that actually works that way. But this will be good practice for bringing our landers down onto a precise target for when I eventually get the, the reusable version of the lander. All right, so with the other crew all set up and resting happily on the station itself, we are just a couple minutes away and just entering into the sun, preparing to start this burn that will bring us down to our base on the surface. All right, so in my testing, I found that landing using a node like this, where I just kind of cancel all of my delta V straight down, works pretty well to get you pretty close. What I should have done is put down a waypoint. Or if I can just like put a waypoint on my target. Moon base. That'll at least make it pretty close. Close all these extra windows. We don't need all this stuff. But we are 1 minute away from our burn. Activating the navigation, that's going to bring us pretty darn close. 511 kilometers away. And we are just about ready. We are go for lunar landing. Last thing to note is that I have fixed my distant object enhancement, so you can see that Venus is kind of brownish now instead of just a white blob. All right, 10 seconds to this burn. Let's start thinking about getting our engine ullaged up. Ready to rock. Here we go, and we have fired the engine. We are on our way down. Now we have 10 minutes of fuel on this, but there's going to be a whole lot of fussing around with this. But this part, I can kind of just begin time warping. You can see that we are getting closer. We've covered about 100 kilometers, even in the time that it's taken me to very exaggeratedly set up that burn. I've actually added a little bit of normal to this maneuver because it's slightly off of the exact orbital trajectory. All right, Lunar station is low on nitrogen, which is not super great. Suicide burn countdown is 1 minute and 15 seconds, so we should be all right. We're definitely all right on that for now, but yeah, we're still trying to cover the 200 kilometers now that is left until we get close to the base. Then I'll be able to begin adjusting our trajectory manually. All right, everything's looking good. Our vertical speed is beginning to increase down towards the surface. Suicide burn countdown is about to cross that threshold. It's time now to switch over to our surface targeting here. That node was good to kind of show us a little bit of what we need to be doing, but at this point we are just trying to point ourselves directly at the moon base, and it looks pretty damn good. It looks like we are right on the bullseye for now. I'm just going to pitch up by about 5 degrees to arrest some of that negative velocity, or at least slow down the increase of it. You can see that has stopped our suicide burn negative countdown, and now I've brought it back up a little bit. So we should have plenty of extra. We have plenty of extra delta V, so we should be able to very carefully maneuver into a landing that's really close to our target. I can just delete that custom waypoint. It is helpful to kind of give us an idea, but yep, you can see that right now our target difference is about 15 kilometers. So I want to rotation. Make it better or worse? Should make this better a little bit. just pushing this trajectory node so that we should be going a little bit closer. We are 24 kilometers away. All right, time to stop futzing around with that. 5 degrees. Up pitch. We are 6.5 kilometers above the surface. Coming straight down the barrel, it looks like. We are deploying our landing legs. Looks like we are going to undershoot a little bit, so I am going to pick our pitch up a little. Arrest some of that downward velocity so that we can drop onto the target a little bit better. All that 25 degrees. Yep, you can see our vertical speed getting eaten up there. Fuel reserves looking real good. 700 meters per second. Right, 40 degrees, and I am beginning to throttle down. As we continue to translate laterally over the surface. All right, we got 28 seconds until impact. Our target difference is going down to 0. Fuel reserve still looking all right. We are descending at 20 meters per second. I am just pointing us straight up at this point. Just want to kill some of this vertical velocity. There we go. Our vertical velocity is practically nothing. Like we could use a little bit of translation in this direction. Our vertical speed is picked up again, so just taking manual control as we fly in this last bit. We got 450 meters per second remaining. All right, so we are real close, so now I'm starting to do our final bit of braking here. 400 meters per second, fuel remaining. They're doing just fine. So I am running out of horizontal velocity. The vertical velocity also. There we go. Picking that back up again. And pointing us at our target. There we go. Oops, I killed the engine. Thankfully, we have one more shot. Alright, that seems like good enough to me. We are just 100 meters away. Well, no, let's keep going. Let's just translate, actually. We can use RCS and a combination of RCS and... Up. Just go directly towards our target. Keep our vertical velocity near 0. We are hovering just above the surface. Really not sure this is what I'm intended to do with this, but I think we are finally close enough now that I am just going to halt us. And there we go. We have contact. We are on the surface, right next to Lunet, or right next to our moon base. All right, so we have done it. I have no idea if that's how you're supposed to land things like this, but it worked well for me, so that seems to be fine. And we are not too far away that I'm worried about the engine exhaust knocking over the other vessel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring our first crew of the moon base over on board, and then we will unveil the name. All right, Edward Walters, Inessa Bogolyubova, getting ready to shut down all of these systems on the LEM, so that we are all set to leave it for its long hibernation. Turn off the scrubber, locks to Gox, pressure control. I don't think they had any nitrogen on board for pressure control anyways. Yeah, so that's all of that. And then when we EVA and bring her down to the surface, I put on, open up the boxes. There's our screenshot. If I open up the boxes, you can see that we have some stuff in here. We've got some science equipment in here that I can turn on, as well as the ECLSS modules. And one of the things that I put in here, or at least I thought that I put in here somewhere, was a little science core so that I could have control of this darn thing while I didn't have crew on it. And it looks like that seems to be working. I have full probe control, so I can go in and shut down the gosh darn avionics. So with the avionics off and no crew on board, we have more power coming in from the radioisotope generator than we have going out through communications or avionics. Fabulous. We could also do some science if we really wanted to, but we have to see if that is going to be something that is supported by our power systems. So we've got that, we've got RPWS, we've got mass spectrometry, and visible imagery. Ooh, it's shrouded. What is that? Oh, it's on my little... Okay, there it is. Let's see. Visible imaging. Yep, you can see it's like underneath here. So yeah, it's shrouded, so it's not going to get any science done. Obviously, a camera is not going to get much done inside there. That's fine, but we have plenty of power. So yeah, this is good. So we're going to be doing some science on this thing, and it is going to be able to do that and continue doing science even when the vessel leaves. So that was the plan there, and that seems to be working fantastically so far. So now it's time to go get on board the station. It's the base itself. Turning on pressure control. I think I really underestimated how much power and so forth that was going to take. Like when the pressure controller is catching up, I really had no idea how much nitrogen and how much power that was going to use, because that's pretty far off apparently. And it's enough that it's costing a lot to the base itself. All right, so we are just running the 100 meters over. Edward Walters is heading up. And that is where I think we are going to call it this time. Yeah, so we're going to get this on board, and then I'm just going to set up the timers and so forth for when this crew is going to be finished with its mission, and hopefully the mission is actually going to be something that we can accomplish with this crew. Like, I can't imagine why it wouldn't work, but you never know with Kerbal Space Program. We are climbing up and getting on board. That is one person on board the moon base. All right, so we are on board. Edward Walters and Anessa Bogolyubova are on board. Kim's Landing, we're going to call it. One of the someone from my comments gave me a really great suggestion, saying that one of the Apollo proposals for a moon base involved calling it Armstrong Base after Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, and Lisa Kim was our first Kerbal on the moon, so we're going to call it Kim's Landing. And that is that. So I am pretty excited about this. We can shut down the avionics for now. No real reason to actually have avionics on board because we are drawing a ton of power from the nitrogen pressure controller, and I'm really hoping that that's not actually going to devour all of our nitrogen, getting our pressure up to where it needs to be. So we're having the same problem here and also up in orbit of me just not having understood the catch-up mechanic of repressurizing the base and just how much that was going to cost. I figured that it would just be like always at some low level. I didn't realize that it was going to be quite so darn much. So I guess let's just see how this goes, because we only have about 10 minutes until we run out anyways. Yeah, we are out. Yeah, we are out of nitrogen. We are completely out of nitrogen. So they are going to have to wear their suits the entire time that they are down on this base, which I'm not sure. Ugh. Man, that's awful. That is just a bad move on my part. So I don't know how long they're going to be able to make it down here as far as stress is concerned. We're already 8% stressed. That was fast. But on the plus side, our power is back positive again. Yeah, so, man, that was a goofy thing that I did here. Yeah, that's right. Not bad. Yep, definitely should have used an oxygen scrubber instead of a nitrogen one. Because I don't have a really good way to resupply this base, now that I'm thinking about it. This was intended to be kind of a single-use base, because I don't really have a good way to transfer food and water and oxygen and so forth into it. Yeah, I guess we're going to find out. My next module is going to have to be something that I'm going to be able to get refueled properly. So we'll see exactly how I can do that. It's just, that's such a hard thing in Kerbal Space Program. Like, in real life, I could, like, literally carry over tanks of nitrogen and so forth from the lander into the habitation module. But that's not something you can do in KSP. I have to literally dock, or I have to go install Kerbal Attachment System, which is just a whole other can of worms. So... yeah, so I screwed up on this nitrogen, so we have actually just bottomed out on that. We've gotten just shy of the proper pressure where it would have been taking like a quarter of a unit per hour for the entire life of the mission. I did not realize... Well, I just didn't realize. So we'll see how that goes, and I guess we'll just leave you on that cliffhanger and see how well this works, and if we have to abandon the base and run back into orbit to meet up with our crew and get back home that way. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.